welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura.
And I'm Katie, and today we're talking about symbiotic relationships.
Yeah.
What's a symbiotic relationship, Laura?
Well, Katie, it is one that it's basically the association between two species that live together. So a lot of people who hear symbiotic relationships think that it's got to be good things, but that's not necessarily true because today we're going to talk about how many species have developed close relationships with one another, some of which benefit both and others that do not.
So you really default to that would be good? Because every time I hear that, I always assume it would be bad. Maybe this is like a glass half empty kind of situation.
Yeah, must be. Yeah. Well, and what I was reading on the internet, people are like, oh yeah, symbiotic relationships, good thing.
Huh, interesting.
And you're like, working together is always bad.
Yeah, right. Always horrible. Maybe it's the divorce that my brain is just like, being with somebody? No.
Parasitic relationship.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Can't, no.
Meanwhile, I'm like, working in tandem.
Yeah, it's great. Well, there are 5 different main types of symbiotic relationships. You have mutualism. Okay.
The kind that I'm thinking about. Commensal. Like pencil.
Commensalism, predation, parasitism, and competition. Which some of those fall under other ones. It depends on your source.
Plus, everyone's like, what the heck is commensalism? That's when one benefits and the other one's not affected.
At all.
Right. So mutual, both. Commensal, one not anything to the other. Parasite, one good, one bad. Predation, eating. And what was the other one?
Competition. Yeah, which, I don't know. Predation and competition sound weird to me. Well, we'll get into it. Yeah. All right. I know, Laura, you have nature news.
Yes, I do. And it tracked back to a couple, I don't know, it was the last season, the season before? We talked about, terribly named things. It was AC's episode.
Oh, that's right.
In that episode, we talked about an animal with a non-PC name that should be renamed and was being renamed. It was the gypsy moth. And in that episode, I said that what it should be called was the destroyer moth. That's its scientific name.
Yes, and it's badass, so why not?
Right. So, nature news is they finally decided on a name, and it is insanely disappointing.
Ugh.
Because the name is the spongy moth.
The spongy moth?
Spongy. And
that's so not intimidating.
That was decided upon by a group of 57 people of diverse backgrounds.
And that's the best they could come. That's the best 57
and
people.
200 names were suggested. I didn't send mine in. I'm really hoping somebody else did.
Okay.
But
I will say
the name they decided on.
That is their first mistake, is asking the public. All right, having worked in zoos, that's how you end up with Bodie McBoatface.
Right.
You just never ask the public. Never.
No.
At the water utility that I work with, we did a naming competition, and I was a strong advocate for saying, guys, I promise you nothing good is going to come out of this. Because we got a new mascot, new costume, and they're like, let's do it. Let's name it. And I was...
Of course, they were all probably obscene.
Well, no. Okay, so let me... shout out, I think it's DC Water. Their mascot is a water drop, same thing as ours. And its name is Wayne.
Wayne, the water drop.
Because it's a Wayne drop. Get it?
Oh, got it.
And so I was like, its name is Wayne. And so at surface face value, you don't think too much about it. And then you say, oh, Wayne the drop? Wayne drop. It's really good. And so I was like, guys, we can think of something creative, and we think of creative stuff all the time. That's our job. But we know they insisted on opening up to a naming competition. And these employees are no longer working here, so I can bash them all I want. No, I won't. But I strongly advocated. I'm like, guys, this is a bad idea. Take it from somebody who's worked in zoos for years. Nothing good comes out of it. Even pulled up the Bodie McBoatface example. Nope. So now our mascot's name is Splash, which is, to me, just very me.
Yeah. That's how I feel about the spongy moth.
Yeah. Gosh.
Well, the mistake, 57 people had to agree on it.
That's way too many people.
The only reason that apparently... So it's called the spongy moth because it refers to the egg masses of the species.
Which is so gross.
Which is lame. and
but also,
gross.
yeah. Out of everything, it could be named after.
Right, let's name it after its spongy eggs. But at least this is a little bit of justification. Apparently, in other languages and countries, it is called basically the spongy moth. So in France, and in Canada, it's known as la spongieuse. And in Turkey, its name translates.
Wait, sponge juice?
Spongy. I don't know. However you say sponge in French. Spongieuse. Spongieuse.
Totally sounds like sponge juice, which is so disgusting.
And in Turkey, its name translates to sponge knitter, and in Germany is sponge spinner. So sponge spinner, because that it's like laying its egg sac. It's spinning the sponge of the egg mass. So gross.
Yeah, this is just getting worse. The more that we
is definitely better. The sponge, I guess.
The sponge. That sounds like a Seinfeld episode.
Sponge spinner.
Yeah.
I think that, okay.
Sponge knitter.
The only good thing that can come from this is that it will make people aware of their disgusting spongy egg masses, and maybe then people will pick them off of trees.
But even so, okay, I would never, if somebody's like, oh, the sponge moth, I would think like, oh, the moth must be spongy. Like, is it squishy? Like, that would totally make me
squishy.
That would totally make me want to go touch it. Like, so there's Katie running through the forest trying to
maybe
squish a spongy moth.
Squish it.
Yeah, actually smash it.
Yeah. Is it squishy? Yes, squish it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, spongy moth. Lame, but at least it's better than its former name.
Yeah, still the destroyer moth would have been
way better.
Would have been way better. All right. Do we want to jump into these symbiotic? Listen, I am so excited because one of these is... Okay, you think I love trees?
No, listen, I know which one.
No. You think you know, but there is some... So it's not the one that we both picked, that you said that you knew I would pick. I am talking about that one. But there is one that I love so much more than that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because so as you guys know,
get excited, people.
We send our ideas to Kim to make sure that we don't have the same one, but so that Katie and I don't know what we have. But every once in a while we do choose the same thing. Or I'm like, I would love to do this, but I know that Katie's going to want to. And I had some other ideas in mind, so I was like, listen, if she doesn't want it, I'll take it. But I know she's going to ask.
Yeah, I definitely took it. But I mean, it's the same thing with you. Like, anytime we're doing an episode where big cats can be mentioned, or bears, I just stay away from them.
Just avoid it.
Yeah.
But it was essential that this, like, if someone needed to talk about it. So I couldn't take the risk.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, Kim, if she doesn't.
But there's one that I love even more. So
all right, well,
you're
really excited. You go first.
No, go ahead. Go first.
All right.
Build up the suspense.
I asked Kim to help me narrow down mine. So I have one positive relationship and one negative relationship.
Okay.
We'll start with the negative since that's your go-to anyway.
Yeah. I'm not big on relationships right now.
And ironically, this one is really fitting for your parasitic relationship.
Okay, to be clear, I will say my ex-husband is not a parasite.
You're right, he's not a parasite.
Just to clear the air, it's just funny. We're just joking because I just got a divorce. It's just funny right now.
And your ex-husband has had some really good. I mean, helped us a lot at the beginning.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Nature news.
Definitely for sure. He was my source of doing it just because I didn't, and I always forgot. So
just funny.
It is just funny.
But what's extra funny is that this does have to, like, when you think of this...
I'm just going to keep making...
about love.
I'm going to keep making divorce jokes. Go ahead. Solving.
It's mistletoe.
Oh, really? Oh, I guess so, yeah. I didn't think about that.
I immediately... Like, whenever we were like, symbiotic relationships, plants. Mistletoe, parasite. Because I think parasite relationships are really interesting. And I'd already talked about the... what's the fish we just talked about?
The anglerfish.
Yeah. So anyway, mistletoe.
I'm excited for this one.
Did not know that mistletoe was
I know a little bit about it, but that's literally all I know is that it's parasitic. That's all.
Me too, other than like the traditional stuff. So, a little bit of natural history, since most people don't know about mistletoe. What blew my mind was I thought mistletoe was one species. Nope, it's 1,000 different species.
Hang on, what?
Yeah.
Right? What?
So mistletoe mistletoe is not a species of plant. It is like a term for plants.
What the hell? Like
the mistletoes. First, also the mistletoes just sounds great. Sounds like some really like funny Christmas group. So like a caroling group. The mistletoes. But so there's 1,000 different species. They live on every continent but Antarctica. And when I say mistletoe, you're thinking of the European mistletoe.
Okay.
That people use during the Christmas season. North America has its own version. It's the Eastern or oak mistletoe. That's like, it's got little oval green leaves and white berries.
Where is it in the Eastern U.S.?
It's just the North American version in general. I know it's here. And remember, it was in Arkansas. That's where it first got pointed out.
That's right.
When we were driving that one time at DeGray.
Yeah.
I was like, what's all that stuff on the trees?
And it's mistletoe.
And I was like, what? And now I see it everywhere.
Because it's like huge, just balls of. It's not like the typical, like, when you think of mistletoe, you think of a strand. And that, like you said, that's European. In the U.S., the American mistletoe, it's like a big, it almost looks like a squirrel's nest. But it's just a plant.
And it's especially apparent because mistletoes are evergreen. So once the leaves fall off the trees,
it is there.
Mistletoe.
Yeah.
So to be a mistletoe, like to be considered a mistletoe, the plant has to be 3 things. It has to be parasitic.
Okay.
It has to be aerial, so it has to live off the ground in a tree, and it has to be woody. So it's come on.
Sorry.
There's woody plants and then there's grassy plants.
You just paused. It was the pause.
Your look on your face. I was pausing because your face looked weird.
I was gonna let you skate over it and not say anything, and no.
So anyway, like I said, they're evergreen. Some have insanely gorgeous flowers. We're talking like bright red, trumpet-like flowers with yellow stamens. They're pollinated by birds, flies, and the wind. They typically disperse their seeds. Their seeds are really sticky. They're covered in this special type of sticky goo, which helps when they get pooped out by a bird.
Yeah.
The goo sticks to a tree. And that's where they grow, like where they land. So it's like that. But there is a species that they can shoot their seeds like really far.
Like how? Wait, okay. I feel like this is another measurement that we have. As far as a rat can swim, this is
as far as a mistletoe seed can shoot. But I don't know how many feet. I didn't write it down.
Okay.
There are 90 birds that are mistletoe specialists. Which, again,
how have I missed this my whole life? Yeah, how have I missed this my whole life?
I don't know, but a mistletoe specialist, that's like should be like an elf rank for Santa's workshop. Like, you know, like. Or, like, that's what they call, like. That's what they call, like, the. How do I say this without shaming anything? This is what they call the really like flirtatious elves. Oh, she's a mistletoe specialist.
That's amazing. Holy
I want that
crap.
on a t-shirt.
Okay.
Okay.
This is not what I was expecting at all. Large ponderosa, and this is from Washington's DNR department.
I knew it was a coniferous species.
Okay, I was not expecting this. Large ponderosa pine mistletoe plants can shoot seeds up to 50 feet.
Okay, I knew it was far.
And sometimes farther. Tiny Douglas fir mistletoe plants seldom shoot seeds beyond 10 feet. Large and long lodgepole mistletoe shoot seeds up to 30 to 40 feet. Okay, that's excessively far.
Yeah, because so in order to go that far, you know it's got to have some force behind it. Can you imagine just walking through the woods? You get beamed with mistletoe?
It's like a Nerf dart.
So instead of Cupid's arrow, what it actually is you get beamed in the head by a mistletoe berry.
By a missile seed.
Instantly fall in love with someone.
Yeah. But it's stuck to the side of your head too, no less.
And it's not that you've actually fallen in love, it's that this thing has grown into your skull, parasitized you, and made you think you fell in love. Okay. Anyway.
There's We're so far off track.
It's still about mistletoe. The berries are usually toxic, but those bird specialists are all about it. And mistletoe has evolved multiple times. Like, this has worked out a lot over time for plants to just all of a sudden move up into the trees and live off of something else.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to do all the work yourself. Why bother?
Yeah.
So, how is the relationship symbiotic? Mistletoe are what they call hemiparasites, meaning that they make some of their own food because they do have green leaves with chlorophyll, but they rely on another plant for the rest of their food. So here's what happens. As they grow, they stab their host plant with a modified root called a haustorium. So haustoriums are pretty diverse, like the way that they look and the way that they penetrate stuff. So here's a whole bunch of penetration information. So some of them look like a wedge, a pad that has a wedge under it that they into a plant.
Okay.
Some stimulate the plant to grow around it, and they make these insane things called wood roses. You'll have to look it up. It's just weird looking, and people carve them into crazy stuff. If you look up wood roses, you're going to find wooden roses. Yeah. But if you look up like wood rose,
mistletoe,
or haustorium or something like that.
Oh, that is cool. I mean, it looks kind of weird, but...
Yeah, it's weird. It's definitely like weird plant growth. There's something called epicortical runners, which this is cool. So this is another type of haustorium, meaning that they go under, like they crawl along the branches, penetrating as they go. And so this allows the mistletoe to crawl out to the best patch of sunlight, but then send in, like, penetrate the trunk where the nutrients are.
That's smart.
Yeah, and then some actually go underneath of the bark.
Again, this goes back to our whole hidden life of trees things. Like, if we don't believe that plants are alive,
they're certainly making decisions.
Yeah, right.
Somehow.
Yeah.
This is the best sunlight. So after they shove their haustorium in, they infiltrate the host tissue. And they actually think that they use digestive enzymes to do this, which is kind of fungi-like, really.
Yeah, that is. Huh.
And so then they squirm their way through the tissues to get to the xylem, which, if you guys think about like a straw where all the nutrients are going up and down, usually in a tree, that's they tap into that, and then they suck out the nutrients from there. So the eastern oak mistletoe, oak mistletoe, which we have around here, parasitizes deciduous trees, including oaks, hence the name. But, I mean, mistletoe are super diverse. Some parasitize conifers, like pine trees. Some parasitize other mistletoe. And they've actually found them three mistletoe deep. Like a mistletoe infiltrating a mistletoe, infiltrating a mistletoe.
Jeez.
It's mistletoeception.
Yeah, right.
Going on. And then some people... So remember I said the three things that make a mistletoe are parasite, aerial, and woody. So some people consider some other things mistletoe, ones that aren't woody, but they can actually, some people do consider them mistletoe, and they're can infiltrate ferns, grasses, flowers, and cacti. Typically, they don't specialize on just one species of plant. Like, they're like all deciduous trees, or like they pretty much just utilize wherever they fall. And although they're bad for their host plant, they're great for wildlife and putting nutrients back into the food chain because they're constantly dropping their leaves and their berries.
Makes sense.
And so they're like sucking the stuff out of the tree and giving it back to nature, whereas the tree is going to live a long time. So like it's speeding up the process of nutrient cycling. The berries and leaves, it provides berries for food. Leaves are eaten by a ton of stuff. Shelter, and nesting material. And some species are even considered keystone species, which means like they're essential to where they are. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that there actually is a mistletoe. There's a such thing as a mistletoe researcher, and his name is David Watson from Australia. So you too can specialize in mistletoe.
You too can specialize in mistletoe. Interesting. And
that's the hemiparasitic plant, mistletoe. Well, I say plant. Plants. 1,000
plants.
species, give or take a few.
That is crazy. Okay, are you ready for mine?
Yeah.
I'm ready for mine. All right, so the first one that I have is the bird's nest fern.
Ooh, cool. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, I do. Okay. So I do. So it's Asplenium nitius, and that the only reason why I know how to I know, right? The first try ever. And the only reason why
hesitation.
The only reason why is because I studied these when I was in Australia and I had to say it all the time.
Of course it's Australia.
Right? I know, but listen, okay, so it's found in tons of different places. So it's an epiphytic species of fern in the family Asplenidae, which is native.
So I know what epiphytic is, but you better tell.
I get into it here.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I get into it a little bit. So they're native to tropical southeastern Asia, eastern Australia, which is where I studied them, and Hawaii. But they're called Ekana in Hawaiian. Also,
at least you hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. It's an E. It's an E with a dash and a whoop beside it. Polynesian, Christmas Island, India, and Eastern Africa. It is known by common names. The bird's nest fern, Asplenium nitius, is just like that's what. Because again, in the plant world, a lot of plant people refer to plants by their scientific name because common names are useless.
So variable.
Yes. So anyway, I'm gonna keep calling it the bird's nest fern. But that's what it actually is.
Just where in Australia it probably is called.
Yeah. So oddly enough, these plants are also kept as houseplants. Which makes them sound like a pet. Just keep them as house pet.
Yeah.
But anyway,
a little house pet.
Yeah, but they can grow between 3. And I say that's weird that they're kept as house plants because they can grow. And the ones that I dealt with were huge. So they can grow between 3 to 5 feet tall. And 2 to 3 feet wide. And that's going to need a crap ton of water if it's going to be that big. But, I mean, if your house is not going to be that big. They prefer loomy, moist, well-drained soil and prefer partial sunlight and shade. Fun note, they are not toxic to dogs or cats. And Kim said true, but they are god-awful to keep alive. I've never tried...
Fern. I mean, I've tried just normal ferns.
Yeah.
Too much water.
It's
like they're so fragile.
Yeah, I've never tried to keep a bird's nest fern.
It's too much. I mean, remembering to water something that often. No.
Yeah. All right, so a bird's nest fern is part of a larger group, like I said earlier, of plants called an epiphyte. Okay, I'm so excited to talk about epiphytes. This is my favorite group of plants.
I know, I remember.
Besides trees.
Love them.
Okay, so an epiphyte grows on other plants for physical support, but they also prepare their own food, kind of like what a mistletoe
How weird is it that we both... I mean, man,
listen,
it really is that we are on the same brainwave so often because I start with this aerial plant. Your plant is aerial and can also be found on Christmas Island. Like, what are the chances?
It's our brains. We just sync up. Yeah, it's just getting scary.
Across country.
Yeah, right. So epiphytes receive more than enough light by living on the tree, surprisingly, because like most plants, they won't grow if there's not adequate light. So the epiphytes get water from the rainwater dripping down from the tree branches and nutrients that is washed out of the leaves during the rainfall. So unlike Laura's, that actually like taps into the tree itself. Epiphytes mostly just kind of chill and hang out there. And just...
They're just chill.
They're just hanging out. So epiphytes derive nutrients from the dead and decaying plant parts present around the surface of it. And I'll describe a bird's nest fern here in a minute. So epiphytes are a type of biological interaction known as, it's symbiotic relationship, but it's pencil. Think pencil. Commensalism,
yes.
which is a type of symbiotic relationships. In commensalism, one of the species gets benefited, like we said earlier, and the other species is neither benefited nor harmed. So again, this is like the epiphytes are just chilling there.
I love it.
They usually don't harm their host, of course, but some epiphytes compete with their host for light and nutrients and harm them eventually. When I was in Australia, there's this, it's called a strangler fig. It's not really a fig, but it ends up going up the outside of trees, and then eventually it strangler fig, strangles all the light and everything from the tree and all the nutrients to where the tree then dies in the middle, and then you're just left with a hollow tunnel. I actually climbed up a bunch of strangler figs. really fun because you can climb up the middle of them.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, some epiphytes, like I said, compete, but bird's nest ferns aren't one of the harmful types. So, let's get into the ecology of it. So, why are bird's nest ferns in particular symbiotic? Well, for many reasons beyond the general epiphytic reasons. One, while they don't need a tree to survive, hence the houseplant life, they are typically canopy dwelling, and so they need a tree as a host. They need to hang out somewhere. They can't just be up there by themselves. But there's actually another way cooler reason that they're symbiotic, is that they also provide insects and other creatures within the canopy a place to live. And this is why I love bird's nest ferns, because...
Yeah, and that's same kind of like with the mistletoe. It provides, like, shelter to squirrels and things like that. But yours is probably even more specialized.
Oh, it's so interesting. Okay. God, this is why I get so excited. Okay, so because the bird's nest fern itself, it serves as a micro ecosystem. Okay.
So cool.
Which, God, okay, I love...
Tiny little world.
It is. So I love canopy micro
ecosystems. The concept of little worlds, though, in general, is really crazy.
I mean, if there was more money in research, in forest canopy research, that would be my focus.
Or at least a guaranteed job.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm just spending my life in the tree canopy.
That just reminded me, I remember your insane, like, not insane, it was a good idea, but remember another one of your business ventures?
Yes, it's always the canopy park. I always have business ideas, always. One which is actually coming to fruition finally. But yeah, one of my crazier ones was that canopy animal park, which still, if anybody wants... I was
going to work there.
Yeah, Laura was going to be manager of operations. It was going to be amazing. But canopy stuff, it just makes my... it's so interesting. Okay, so what is a micro ecosystem that gets my motor running so much? Well, a micro ecosystem is a small scale ecosystem. It's a subset of the surrounding biotic community and environmental factors of the larger ecosystem. So it's basically a tiny picture of its larger surrounding. Mm-hmm. They show all the common features of an ecosystem, such as production, decomposition, energy flow, nutrient cycling, everything.
I think it's why people love like terrariums so much.
I think so too, yeah. So not only are bird's nest ferns micro ecosystems, which is cool in itself, but they take it to the next level because they also form their own microclimates. So,
what?
Yes. So these ferns are basically like self-sustaining mini snapshots of all of their surroundings. So how they do the microclimates. So if you picture a bird's nest fern, if you Google it, you'll see tons of pictures of it. There's the base, the bottom, with all like the soil, the roots, and everything in it. And unlike the mistletoe, this one, the roots just kind of hug, and it goes around the tree branch. And then up from it, it's like the fronds of the... Is that what it's called? Fronds of the fern?
Fronds?
Fronds. Yeah, it's definitely fronds. So, and it formed, like it goes up, and then it's like a round. So they all stick up. And so, because they stick up like this, it's almost like it protects everything in the middle. Okay. And so it keeps it humid in there, which sometimes up in the tree forest canopy, like all the humidity is down on the forest floor, not that high within the canopy, and so it keeps that moisture in there. And so it really does sustain its own microclimate, which is so cool. And so there are species within these micro ecosystems within bird's nest ferns that you can't find anywhere else but in bird's nest fern. Yeah, which is amazing.
Specialists are so interesting that way.
So interesting. And because it's self-sustaining system of life, death, and decomposition, you basically have everything you need there to survive if you were an insect. And I also picture this as like there's a species that lives there their entire lives in an epiphyte, and they have zero clue what's on the outside bigger world that exists, but like one day they have an existential crisis and start questioning life's meaning, and then find out there's life outside there's life outside the fern. So Disney can contact me if you would like to discuss further plot development.
It's like the Who, like on the Clover.
This is way better. This is way better.
I'm just saying, like, relatable.
No, it is. It totally is. So what's also amazing about bird's nest fern is it provides habitat to a variety of species. Like I said, some that can only be found in epiphytes. So what can be found there? Ants. Lots and lots of ants. One of the worst ones that I dealt with in Australia were the jumperjack ants, that they actually jump, like they fling themselves up at you. Ants, they'll have their colony in the base of the plant where the dirt and decomposition is, because they're ants. And then in return, so another symbiotic relationship here, not just because of the epiphyte, the bird's nest fern, and the tree itself, but the ants then, they get a home from the epiphyte, and then in return, they actually protect the leaves from other invertebrates from eating them. So
that one's mutualistic.
Yeah, so it's, again, another symbiotic relationship. So, I also found a really cool article about frogs within epiphytes.
I've heard of this, with epiphytes in general.
Yes. Yeah. So, which I do think our tagline for our podcast should be, we read research abstracts so you don't have to, because I feel like that's what it's turning into.
Absolutely.
But there was a study done by Brett Sheffers, Ben Phillips, and Luke Shu, in which it showed that ferns are the preferred diurnal microhabitat and breeding habitat for our several species of arboreal frogs.
I love that image. And so instead of a bug, it could be like this. I just love that this frog has like this own little world.
Yes, and it's just
they can live and thrive in.
Perfectly fine.
And just forget about the outside dangers of the rainforest.
Yeah, just, my phone. Just happy little place in my phone.
Between one fern? We could start our own show.
Between one fern. So they did show in this research that there's a strong positive relationship that exists between fern size and frog usage and abundance, which makes sense. So the experiment showed that the large ferns buffered the maximum temperatures and reduced variability in temperatures, and buffering is directly linked to their hydration. So again, big leaves forming a microclimate, it's more reliable than what is the commonly unpredictable climate of the rainforest. But in their research, they showed that frogs are likely using large ferns for their moist, cool environments for breeding and daytime retreat, which supports the buffered habitat hypothesis.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere once, too, that, like, a lot of arboreal tree frogs will lay their eggs in epiphytes because there's, like, water in there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, it's like the perfect living mini ecosystem. And if you've listened to any of our other episodes about frogs, they're an indicator species. An indicator species tells you how healthy or unhealthy an ecosystem is, because they are insanely picky about their habitat and where they breed. So if frogs are living in an epiphyte, it must be a hell of a place to be. Which goes into the conservation of epiphytes and why that they're important for the ecosystem, because researchers really can look at an epiphyte and study a micro-ecosystem. It's like taking a snapshot of the surrounding rainforest, look at it, study it, and just see, again, a snapshot of what's going on within that rainforest, because it's getting, you figure, the rain that's falling off of the trees, so that tells you, what nutrients are picking up there, if it's just water, what's going on, the decomposition around it, it's falling into it, so it just tells you so much about them. So epiphytes and bird's nest ferns are extremely important and
probably
heavily studied.
Matter from a lot of species.
Yeah,
that, are in the area.
It gives you that perfect little snapshot. So, in conclusion, bird's nest ferns are by far my favorite symbiotic relationship, because they are the definition of it tenfold, because it's like symbiotic relationship on relationship on relationship. Okay, I gotta calm myself down. That's the epiphytic bird's nest fern. It's so good.
It is so cool.
It is so cool.
Mini worlds.
Yes.
Here we go again. The perfect segue.
It is. Into yours?
To mine.
Of course it is.
But this is going to be a way to calm you down, because this one, even though it is a mutualistic, commensalistic relationship, I had an existential crisis after researching this one.
Uh-oh.
So my mini world, that I'm going to focus on is your skin flora.
Shut the front door. You have, okay, listen.
Wait, were you really thinking about doing this?
No, I'm saying...
Just the fact of the small world.
No, okay, it is a small world, but I'm saying, you already have OCD, and medical stuff is what freaks you out. And so what do you research? Your skin and what's there.
Really interesting.
Oh my gosh.
It was really interesting.
No, what? You're setting yourself up for a crisis here.
But so I'm taking the small world even further to the microbes that live on your skin. Fascinating. So, and gross, but cool. So, humans have an invisible relationships with lots of different things in and through our bodies and on them. And some of them are animals, but we're not talking about that today. Instead, I'm just lumping everything together. So it's the bacteria, the fungi, the viruses, and the little micro animals that live on your skin. It's also known as skin flora, also known as the skin microbiome. That sounds a little better.
Yes, skin microbiome. Let's just call it that.
So the majority by far, there's a ton of research done on this. And
I believe it, because you can be your own, you can be your own test subject.
Yeah.
Like,
I read a lot of abstracts, and I'll get there. So what they found in many studies is that by far the majority of what is living on your skin is bacteria, surprising probably no one. And the least thing living on your skin is fungi.
Okay. I mean, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some come and go, and some are permanent residents. So I seriously learned so much. Of course, I knew that we have stuff living on our skin, but how it's all working together is fascinating. So the way you even get your skin microbiome is during birth. When you're inside, you're completely sterile.
Yeah.
Duh. But so for babies born vaginally, that is the dominant skin biome at the time. And for babies born for C-sections, their skin microbiome is mostly like skin-related bacteria. That's like from their mom's skin.
Yeah, it makes sense, but still.
Yeah, because you're coming out through skin and coming out
through
So your microbiome is determined by a lot of different things. Your skin's acidic, which I didn't know. So it's got a pH of 5 for anybody who knows their scale. So it's got an acidic pH.
For all those wondering.
Yeah. So it's determined by your skin's pH, determined by the moisture level. I was going to say, you better put down your drink. I feel like I'm crazy.
I try to keep taking a sip.
The moisture of your skin, the temperature of your skin, the oxygen carbon dioxide ratio, sun exposure, interactions with other microorganisms, innate host defenses, and your genetic makeup. However, with all of those factors, your microbiome stays pretty stable over time. The only complete restructuring of it is during puberty, which makes sense because your hormones change, so your skin changes. And that's why actually you see your skin is the best indicator of your age. What grows on your skin. Kids, there are different microbes.
You said what grows on your skin. Okay, what you said, what grows on your skin? Kids? I was like,
those kids that grow on your skin. It feels like it sometimes.
It goes back to the whole baby suck to your nipple thing.
Yeah. Kids have different microbiomes than adults. So what do humans bring to the table of this relationship? So like I said, the relationship that you have with what lives on your skin, for the most part, is either mutualistic or commensalistic. So either win-win or at least a win and you're nothing. So what humans bring is that our skin provides, I can't even believe this number. You know how like you hear these crazy numbers of like how many feet of intestines are in your body or like, stuff like that. I read two very different numbers, and I'm assuming that this number must be because of all the nooks and the crannies, and they probably are including like. So,
I mean, some people have more nooks and crannies than others, so.
oh yeah, but not by. So one measurement, the average human, some places say has about 1.5 to 2 meters square of skin. Totally reasonable. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But still, it's so gross.
But I'm assuming that this other number that I got from a scientific article is including so a lot of these bacteria live in you're like in the follicles. So if you took all the nooks and crannies of your skin
and laid it out,
30 meters square of living space on your body.
I don't know if I believe that one.
I don't know. More research, possibly. So, but anyway, if that's true, that's
I mean, like you said, I guess if you took, like, all the follicles and, like, flattened them all out and stuff like that, I mean, I guess that would make sense.
Maybe. So, it's, regardless, it's a lot of living space. So, we provide the home. We also provide, and these homes are extremely, so the environment that these microbes live on reflects what lives there. So this is where it gets like gross, but kind of interesting. Lots of studies done where they tested all different parts of people's bodies and they categorized them into 3 categories, and where like the environment there directly impacts what bacteria live there. So there are the dry parts of your body, such as your hands and your legs. There are the moist parts of your body, such as the creases and in between your toes. And then there are the sebaceous or the oily parts of your body, your head, your neck, and a couple of other places. So those are the different environments. So just like, it's your skin's an ecosystem, and just like ecosystems have different habitats, so does your body. And so we also provide the nutrients for this stuff. So they're eating our fats and our proteins and our oils. Yeah, gross but necessary, I suppose.
I suppose.
But there actually isn't a lot of stuff for them to eat on us. So their competition is fierce. So that's what humans provide.
Fight club.
Yeah, a little bacteria fight club. What do the microbes bring to the table? This is where it gets interesting, and I didn't know any of this. Basically, it all boils down to that they keep our skin healthy. But how exactly do they do that? Well, some are just hitchhikers that take up space so there isn't enough room for other things to grow there, like the bad stuff. So this is commensalistic. So this is they just live there, using up resources so that pathogens, which are bad, like bacteria and viruses and stuff, don't have room to grow. So they're just taking up too much space. But some of them actively keep our skin healthy. So this is where like mutualism comes in. Okay. So when you're like born, right away, microbes go into your hair follicles.
That's so gross.
Yeah, gross. But so they go in there and then they start having this like, they're talking basically to your skin cells down there, and they're educating them. So great image of these little bacteria.
Listen,
skin cells.
I know you're new here to the world, but let me tell you how it's going to be.
It really is like that. And they're like, how it's going to be is that some of us are okay and some of things are bad. And the bad things you keep out, and the good things, like me, you let us stick around in.
That is such a creeper statement, though. Like, how do you really know what bacteria to trust?
I don't know. But
because what if the bad bacteria gets in there first? Does a bad bacteria win and convince?
Maybe they don't bother educating. They just try and take over.
Maybe.
I don't know. But basically, these microbes educate the skin cells, and that is how the skin cells learn their immune response.
Interesting.
If this doesn't happen right away, you have no immunity on your skin. What? Like crazy things can happen. They were testing with mice. So they teach your skin to tolerate the majority of what it comes into contact with. Otherwise, you'd always be sick.
Yeah, exactly.
They can also modulate the inflammatory response of the skin. They help in wound healing, which was another, tons of studies have been done, analyzing what actually is in wounds, and do microbes help, what's living in there, and how does it help? So it can help heal. And then also some of them actually, through their process of, eating and, I don't know, it's not living. They're producing and digesting and things like that. They're creating antimicrobial molecules called bacteriocins. So they're actually actively secreting antimicrobe stuff onto your skin.
That's exactly
protecting you from other bad stuff.
That's what I've always wanted, is secretions on my body.
Secretions. Hey man, I'll take antibacterial secretions on my skin any day.
Right.
Bring it on.
Fight Club and secretions.
So they do, I mean, without them, we would be we wouldn't be able to live in the world. We would always be sick.
Always be sick.
Always be sick. And interestingly enough, as we age, our microbe diversity lessens. And this is thought to contribute to skin aging and makes you more prone to infection.
Interesting.
It's like the whole thing's all kind of tied together with between like, you know, is it that the skin is affecting the microbes, or is it the microbes that's affecting the skin? It's kind of hard to tell. But like I was saying, it's like...
You would think since old people are so wrinkly, there'd be more space to live.
But I think that their hormone, like the actual, like what their
skin is made of.
Maybe there's even less nutrients for them to eat.
That's so gross.
Yeah. And so as awesome as this relationship is, as absolutely necessary as this is, it is insanely finely balanced. So some helper microbes can quickly turn into pathogens under certain conditions. And we're talking like hairline balance. So you've got strep bacteria all over your body. Let's say you get a cut, that strep is forced into your wound, that can make it turn bad. It needs to live, and it's certain, like, they're very picky about how and where they live and the conditions that they live. If you're become immunocompromised, then your body like can't handle even the little bit that's on your skin.
Well, I mean, but that's what they say about like cancer cells, though, is that everybody has the possibility of cancer cells in them. It's just under the right conditions they can be activated some type, and then you know what I mean, and it just goes. Goes and goes.
So it is all so, but that's the amazing part of nature that we're always talking about, is how fine-tuned nature is in general, and we're no exception. Everything about our bodies is perfectly balanced, and when the balance is disrupted, that's when bad things happen. Sometimes that's completely normal reasons, like you just get a cut, or you age, and then other times it's just where I was having my existential crisis. So of course this leads to, well,
here we go.
I'm clearly using too much hand sanitizer.
Oh yeah.
Because hand sanitizer is killing every microbe on your skin.
So my dad before he passed away, okay, he was an avid nail biter for my whole entire childhood. Avid nail biter. And so he finally stopped because he started using hand sanitizer, stopped biting his nails. And then that's whenever he started always getting sick. And he always was like, it's because I stopped biting my nails off. And he was like as gross as that is, he's like, no,
I would be eating a lot of bacteria.
I'd be eating a lot of bacteria, and now it's at the hand sanitizer, so it's getting rid of the the ecosystem on your skin. Stop, tiny doses of bacteria under your fingernails, which is so disgusting to think about. But then he started getting sick, and he swore by it till the day he died.
I was reading some articles about it, and of course, we live in a day and age where we know that there are. Hand sanitizer, washing your hands, it's all important.
Yes.
I mean, especially like there was an entire article written on like the pandemic.
Yes.
What are we supposed to do? What's worse?
But I mean,
it's essentially weighing. It is trying to keep the balance as best you can.
It's the same thing in your gut, though. I mean, like, after you have, like, certain medications, they say you need to have a probiotic.
You take a probiotic.
Because you have to re-regulate the fauna in your gut, because you've wiped it clean.
Because actually, gut are maybe even more important than the skin. I actually was going to talk about gut fauna, but then decided to do skin instead. So, you wash your hands. That doesn't wash off everything. It's pretty great at getting rid of viruses. So like washing your hands is the preferable. The hand sanitizer just kills everything on your skin. All the little bitty guys, all the bacteria, all the viruses. And so then you've just got a clean slate on your hand. You're just disrupting the balance. Can you disrupt the balance every once in a while? Absolutely. And you should. Like, you should absolutely wash your hands before you eat. If you can't, try and use some hand sanitizer. But do not over-sanitize.
Yeah.
Not only should you not use too much hand sanitizer, and I already knew that. I mean, I knew it's not good for your hands. But what I didn't know about was that there are certain products that contain a certain type of antimicrobial dial and other products that contain antimicrobial chemicals. When you put them on your hands, it not only kills what's on your skin, but it can actually be absorbed by your skin, go into your bloodstream, and kill the bacteria that are living in your gut flora, which are insanely important. And if they die off, can cause huge health issues.
Interesting.
It affects behavior. We're talking serious. It's so there are certain and a lot of companies have moved away from using this because it's just too powerful. And of course, with all of the bacteria resistant everything that we're creating because of all the sanitization we do. So, coming from someone who needs to be sanitary, it's just believe me, guys, listeners out there, anyone who struggles like I do, having a baby is breaking me slowly.
Because they're so gross.
Me be a better person.
Yeah.
Because you have to let things go because you can't sanitize them all the time.
Yeah.
I have to just, and
they're gross.
Call, and I know she's gonna lick the floor, and things like that. And I'm just have to get over it.
One time we were in an airport with Luke, and we turned around, and he was just licking an airport window. And I was like, I thought that was the worst. And then I was like, don't lick the window. He was itty bitty. I was like, don't lick the window. And I turned around to say something, and I turned around, and then he was licking the airport floor.
And you can only,
what do you
I
do?
had a straight up panic attack and then be okay.
Yeah.
I saw a friend's kid drop pasta on the sidewalk and then eat it from the sidewalk. And I was like, oh my gosh, but people walk on the sidewalk after they've walked through dead animals. My brain goes I can see the trace back. And it's a living nightmare.
But I will say, the whole...
Anyway.
I will say, though, with the gut stuff, though, a lot of people knock it, as far as the importance of gut health and how much it affects you, because so many, holistic healers focus on your gut health that it's kind of knocked. But no, it's it's a legit thing.
It's legit.
Like you said, it controls so much of your healthy immune system. And to an extent, again, anything in moderation can be good. And so,
absolutely.
The detoxing and stuff like that, within moderation, it can be good. Should you do it all the time? No, I know some people that do a detox and they eat regular food and everything for a week, and then they do another detox. No, you're killing your internal system. That is why you don't feel good, because you're going overboard. But taking care of a good gut health is so important for your overall well-being, your mental health, just how good you feel. Your gut health is so freaking important for that.
Yeah, and so your skin microbiome is essential to keep you healthy as well. So again, everything in moderation. Am I going to wash my hands a ton still? Yeah, because it's better than hand sanitizer. But I can consciously recognize the fact, and I do all the time with baby.
With baby.
The exposure to some bacteria is good. It is a good thing. It protects you in the long run. But yeah, so that's we don't even know that these relationships exist because they're happening on such a small scale.
Yeah.
But thank goodness they are. What's our last relationship? Oh, wait, I know.
Yeah, you already know.
I think I know this.
No, you know this one.
Sometimes because we send our ideas to Kim, if we overlap, she has to tell us that we overlap.
Yeah, so she already told me that you had said you were going to do this one, but you knew I would do it. So
I love it so much.
Tell
me more about it.
My second one doesn't get me as excited as a bird's nest fern, but I do like this one because growing up in Western PA, these are everywhere. And since they could be seen everywhere, I took a liking to them.
Hey!
And it's lichen. Lichen. Okay.
And lichen are everywhere. All over the world.
Everywhere. So there are approximately 3,600 species of lichen in just North America.
I was just going to say, that can't be the world.
No,
okay.
just in North America. And that's just the ones we know about. That's not... There's so many more that we don't even know about.
It's gotta be like the fungi with the dark taxa.
Yeah,
like,
no, there
so
has to be.
Lichen.
Well, because literally every year, there's new discoveries of lichen being made.
Wow, I want to find some.
Right? We just need to get better at identifying lichen, and we can find our own. All right, lichens are found all across North America, literally all over the world, like we said. They are among the hardiest and most resistant of all plant organisms. These primitive plants can withstand long periods of drought, intense heat, and freezing temperatures, making it possible for them to live where nothing else can.
Yeah.
These plants have no stems, no roots, and no leaves. And I know you've seen them on rocks, kind of, I don't want to say like the stereotypical lichen, but the one that you're often going to see is almost fuzzy in appearance, and they're like sandwiched flat against the rock, and they're on trees. I don't know how else to describe it.
I think they kind of look like flattened flowers.
Yeah.
Like, they are very kind of like petally looking almost.
Yeah. You've definitely seen them. If not, look it up. Lichen.
Blue.
Yeah. And, but there's tons more colors and a variety, but that is like the stereotype lichen. So these fuzzy green looking ones are only one of the 3,600 different species found within North America. So what is a lichen? Because we said symbiotic relationships here. Mm-hmm. So lichen are actually a combination of at least two different organisms. And we'll get to the at least part in a bit because that is important. So part one is there has to be an alga, a plant, or cyanobacteria. And part two has to be a fungus. So the composite body, the alga fungi combo, of the lichen is called the thallus. So the body is anchored to the substrate by hair-like growths called rhizines. The thallus is what you are typically looking at when you see a lichen, like just that big body. So of these, there's different body types too. One's
some are spiky looking.
Yeah,
flat.
Crustose, fruticose and folulose, which I'm like, geez, could you just differentiate those names a little bit? And I'm not going to go into the detail here because I want to talk more about the symbiotic relationships rather than lichen bodies. So, symbiosis. We already know it's made up of at least two things, so that right there is a dead giveaway. There's a symbiotic relationship, or else we wouldn't have made it this long, evolutionary speaking. So the relationship, though, of the algae or cyanobacteria manufactures the food for the partnership, while the fungus, which has no chlorophyll and cannot manufacture its own food, traps the moisture and anchors to the plant, the rock, tree, or whatever it is. This
the structure and the food maker.
Yep, pretty much. So this symbiotic relationship between alga and fungi is complex, but an interesting one at that. So earlier I mentioned that lichens consist of at least two different organisms. So lichens were once, way back in the day, classified as a single organism. That wasn't.
Makes sense.
It does, because I would never guess
How would you ever know that?
Yeah, there's no way.
Without microscopes.
Well, and that's whenever they started. That's whenever they were like, oh, this isn't actually one thing, this is two. And it came with the invention of a microscope.
Makes sense.
And that was whenever the association of a fungi with the algae or cyanobacteria became evident. Again, I get it, because if you just look at it, you would never, to the naked eye, you would never know. Well, in more recent years, scientists have found yet another fungus within that plant. Yes, so it's not two anymore. And it's called basidiomycete yeast. And it may be the third symbiotic partner in many, many, many lichens.
Huh. So it's a specific kind of fungi.
Yes.
Yeah, the basidia. Yeah. I remember when we talked about our fantastic fungi, that was one of the groups.
Mm-hmm. So at first, humans in general thought that lichens was one organism. Then we thought it was two. But now scientists see lichen as a community organism, which is so cool.
Yeah, that sounds cooler.
Way cooler. Community organism.
Communities.
Yes. So in the research that's being conducted right now, instead of studying only one fungus and one alga, they looked for genetic differences in all fungi between two different lichen species. And that's when they started to find that the yellow lichen with valpinic acid had a much higher number of genes belonging to that yeast. Researchers then started to expand their scope, looking at more, and they started to screen other species of lichen and found that different species carried genetically distinct that Basidium myscete yeast. When they took one species in Montana specifically and compared it with the same species in Europe, they found that the Basidium myscete yeast also stayed the same.
Wow.
Suggesting that the species of yeast was highly specific to the species of lichen rather than just being a product of like the lichen's environment or whatever's around it.
But that's so interesting. What came first,
right?
So is it the yeast that determines the type of lichen, or is it the lichen that determines the type of yeast can live there?
Or is it a combination of both? Because if it's a community, because in our minds we thought two, and then now we have this third one, but they're saying now if it's a community, then it's all, you have to have all three of those together for it to actually make a lichen.
Yeah, I would assume that it's got to be that the yeast is determining type because it's coming in at the same time as everything else. Like the yeast and the other things.
Yes.
Like the combination determines the type.
Yes. But again, I mean, we're discovering new things about this every single year. So the next task after this was for the researchers is understanding whether the Basidium myscete yeast play a role in building the lichen structure. Because if we know what the fungi does, we know what the algae or cyanobacteria does, what does this yeast actually do? So the functions of these yeasts might bring scientists closer, and they don't really know at this point, but they think that by understanding this and studying this more, they might be able to synthesize lichens in a lab, which is a feat that would allow researchers to study in lichens without having to collect them in the wild. Can lichens be reproduced in a lab? Yes. Is it difficult? Absolutely yes. Just because, again, like Laura was saying, that fine hair, that fine line of being able to create something, whenever it has balance or it doesn't have balance, it's very difficult to recreate that. So, what do lichens do? Just overview. So, what do lichens do, and why would they want to even grow them in a lab? So, most rock-growing lichens play an important role in ecosystems by converting rocks into soil. Lichens produce a weak acid, which slowly dissolves the minerals, forming tiny cracks in the surface of the rock.
I always like to tell kids, like, when we see lichen, I'm like, they're eating the rock.
They're eating the rock.
Which is super cool.
Yeah, and it's important.
We need soil.
Yes. So during the cold weather, the moisture in these cracks freezes, often breaking or splitting off pieces of rock, and it just keeps going over. Little progress is noticeable even after a century, so it's not like this is like a fast process. But again, whenever you're on geology's time, you think trees are slow, geology time frame is even slower. So do lichens.
Lichen lifespans.
But,
how long do lichen live?
Well, I mean, if they're over a century old on these rocks and it's not even seeing a breakdown. But yeah, so I mean, they do play an important role, and it's the same thing with like on trees and stuff. They break it down. So they're not classified as a decomposer, but I mean, in a way,
I think that they should be.
If they're not, let me Google this.
Because I guess a decomposer probably is organic material.
Yes,
that's got to be definition. And lichen are inorganic material.
Okay, so one quick thing says that lichens are considered decomposers, fulfilling an essential role in the ecosystem by breaking down dead, sometimes living things.
Dude, Katie, I just looked up how long do lichen live.
How long do they live? And it's got to be a long time, like sea turtle.
There are lichens in Antarctica that are estimated to be approximately 500 to 5,000 years old.
That's insane. That's insane. Lichen.
An average of some are 100.
That's just craziness. Uncalled for a lifespan.
I mean, cool.
So that is an overview, because I don't want us to go too much longer, but that's an overview of lichen. Another really cool thing.
I do a whole episode on lichen.
Oh my gosh, I could.
Like radiation sponges.
I had to keep it so short. Yes, we should just. I mean, if the listeners, if you guys want us to do a whole lichen episode,
if you're liking that lichen,
we could totally do a lichen, because oh my gosh, it's so much deeper than just what I went into. But another cool fact that I found So if you grew up in a Christian home and went to church or whatever, there's the story about manna from heaven.
What?
Yes.
You're saying that's lichen?
Yep, because lichen in that part of the world will actually like slough off and go through the wind, and you can eat a lot of lichen. Like it's completely edible. And so a lot of researchers and historians think like, okay, if manna from heaven is coming, it was that correct time of year that lichen would be falling off the trees and blowing through the wind, and was lichen manna.
My brain just exploded. That's incredible. I hope that's the real story.
Right? They were just munching on fungi. Yeah.
I mean, so cool.
I mean, people eat lichen all the time. I really think
it doesn't mean that manna can't be lichen.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have any bearing on the validity of that story.
No, I would love to do a whole lichen episode. I really, really would, because it is so interesting, and I had to hold back so much more information because I want to keep us within a time frame, because we're already over the hour hit. So,
all right, well, we better wrap it up for
everybody's
sake.
Alrighty, symbiotic relationships are really amazing, and they do play an important role, so I hope you guys learned at least a little something today. At least, if anything, just my love for bird's nest ferns.
I was going to say, hopefully, that you can see that some symbiotic relationships are beneficial to some and not beneficial to others. It depends on the species.
I mean, there are some things that just get you deep down excited, and like tree canopies and bird's nest ferns does it for me. Just every time. It's just, I get so excited. I don't know why. It's just something in my core that I'm like, this is amazing. But
I feel a lot like that about fungi. I think.
It's so
something
cool.
about it. It's, yeah.
So anyway, hopefully maybe you feel a little bit more, I guess, not quite as much as I like bird's nest ferns, but hopefully you found something amazing in this episode. Be sure to follow us on social media and check out our Patreon page, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Tune in next week.